Hello and good evening. This is a summary of today's progress. You may have seen a video I did earlier on today around the wiring, and this is what the layout looks like now. So one thing I'm quite aware of is how the quality of this video won't be so great because I'm using the one light bulb that's in my little workshop. So I've ordered a set of LED strips to go around the whole of the board. So I'll be using those as of tomorrow. So if you can just bear with me for today, this is what we've got. So I've used a continuity tester on my little electronic voltmeter, which is this guy. So this down here is the continuity tester. So I can then use that for a known good feed, which is on the staging track over here. I can then test each section of rail, and it turns out there was one or two that were not electrically live. It was over here because this last section here is a little addendum, and it wasn't electrically bonded to this long piece of rail, so I had to solder that. Other than that, everything was fine, almost the first time round. Yes, so the way I fed the wires in from the bottom, you saw the bus and you saw these little thin wires. Anytime I've got PCB sleepers, I'll try and get in and zoom in and see. I would challenge you to see it there, but essentially, I'm coming up from under the baseboard, and I'm folding over this very thin wire, and then I'm soldering it into the web of where the solder already is, just heating it up and letting it re-solidify, and that's giving me electrical conductivity on all of the PCB points really nicely. Right at the end here, I've just soldered to the rail ends. These are going to be totally hidden from view. There's a fascia board that comes out about yay far, and there's going to be a building, or some of a building here anyway, and over there. So I wasn't too fussed about that. For areas that are a little more visible, I've used what you can see here. Hopefully you can see here. It probably looks a bit messy. It's because it's covered in solder and burn marks and so on, but that's a brass version of the same plastic chairs that are adjacent. So you can cut it off the sprue and cut it in half, because obviously you don't want to leave the whole thing because it will create a short, but cut it in half. There's a slice down the middle, and then you can solder it to the chairs. And if I was thinking ahead, I could have soldered wires directly to the bottom of that, and then threaded that on when I was threading the rail, and then it would just drop down straight into a hole. I didn't, so I've drilled holes next to it, and in the same way folded that over and soldered it into the web. I think it's okay. It's not perfect. That's my biggest problem, I think, is when it comes to feeding power. So I was really pleased with the PCB section. So yeah, I've just got to do a bit better on the other stuff. Yeah, I think the only other real finding that I've had is that I'm just not going to be using cork anymore. This is 2mm cork, nominally 2mm, and it's okay, but it's not perfectly flat. I mean, it probably looks it from this view, but there's undulations in the cork, which mean it's incredibly difficult, especially over rail joints. I mean, I've only got a few. I've got like one over here, one in the back corner, one here. So there's like 3 there, and then there's about 4 over here, including the one that goes into the fiddle yard. And every single joint had vertical misalignment, which shouldn't happen really. I'm using these Easy Track bases, so these come in something like 5. So that it's like 5 is one sprue that you thread the rail onto. So I thought, okay, if there's 2 on this side, 3 on this side, then it's all held together. But the reality of it is, no matter how much I was trying, there was always some variance, and it was enough that you could press your finger, like enough like that, and it would deflect into the cork or onto the cork, depending. And yeah, I'm skeptical of the noise cancelling abilities of the cork, and ultimately it's that flexibility is actually turning out to be a bit of a nightmare because it's making alignment really difficult. So definitely not going to use cork next time. In terms of what's to come, lighting obviously, and the top board here, there's a full front fascia board, and then a cover that goes in front of that, and I won't be fitting those yet because I've got a lot of Scenic work to do. So I'll just very briefly describe my thoughts on that, because they may change. This is cut away to represent a riverbank, so it will come down roughly to about here-ish. In terms of the raw wood will be down at this level, and then I'll use sculpt to mold to create a bank, and I will probably bring that bank up slightly and then across to here, and then as we come this way have a very slow gradient. I'm not really attempting to mask this fully. This layout is based on Hepton Bridge, and that layout had a bridge, like a bridleway or a passenger bridge over the railroad, like this, over the railway, and I think that's a bit contrived from what I'm going for. So yeah, I'm just going to go with an embankment on both sides with trees kind of coming down. This will just end up being a gravelly kind of waste ground at the front. This section in between here is the goods yard, and there'll be a cattle dock here. This will be the goods line, so there will be a goods shed here, probably to break up the sight lines, a crane. And then beyond that, on the same line, I'm expecting there to be a road going through the back here, and on the other side of that road will be a dairy here, and this will potentially be the rest of the line. I'm going to put a level crossing in here with the gate permanently closed, which is how I can justify such modest settings, is that it's not really the end of the line, it's just a stop on the way, but nothing's going beyond that. And over here we're going to have a small station building, a light railway style station building rather than a big one, with a platform probably ending around halfway through, from here to here, about a foot or so. And then there'll be an area behind what I guess would be a car park, but probably a forecourt of some sort, and then then raising up to that embankment. So that's the thought. May change, but I'm just really excited. Actually, this is the furthest I've got with a layout that I've especially, definitely the first one I've built with hand-built track, and if I've got a chip coming. This locomotive is DCC ready, but it doesn't have one, so I've got a chip to be delivered tomorrow. So if that chip arrives, I'll have locomotives running, and it will be a really nice thing to have a layout done this far. And the fact it's so small means hopefully I can make big strides in progress relatively quickly. The scenic treatment of this won't take very long at all, I don't think. So yeah, stay tuned.